Well, Chuck, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
This
you for
is
having me.
this is part of the archive interview series. We're here at I guess day 3 of the Folklife Festival. You're performing later today, right?
Yes, indeed.
Cool. Well, why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your music, and then we can go from there.
Sure. My name is Chuck, and I am the band leader for the Blowout Heavies, which is a New Orleans-inspired brass band. Um, what was the rest of the question? I'm already forgetting it.
Just like yeah, anything you want us to know, like anybody you like for people who are listening, like maybe you could tell us how long you've been in Seattle, how long you've been playing music,
Sure.
anything else you might want us to know.
Okay. I think I can handle that. So I got here right when the pandemic started,
Okay.
in 2019. So I have an ex-girlfriend and I moved up here, and everything shut down. But there was a brass band called TMB, This Much Brass,
I think I've heard of
who
them
I had reached
before.
out to, and I was really excited to play with. And of course, everything shut down. But as things were kind of opening up, TMB had some outside rehearsals. I think they played on Friday, probably.
Mm-hmm.
This Much Brass, but um, I had a great time with them, and then I played I think 2023 Folklife with them, and I really just enjoyed it. My role around town is a little bit different. When I first got here, I was a mailman, and then ended up teaching elementary music.
Oh
But
wow,
in
cool.
since that time, sort of doing music part time, but always trying to be more involved with stuff. So playing funk music or a lot of brass band, honk band stuff, and eventually just sort of got more and more into it. So now I host a brass band jam every first Wednesday at the Sea Monster Lounge, 7 to 9. Come through. Not this month, but next month we'll be there, July 2nd. And we have the charts all on my website, chuckdemonin.com/SEMO.
Yeah.
And that's sort of inspired by, I think, a lot of the work that people are already doing here in Seattle. There's
Hmm.
a honk band jam that goes on at Julie Mays, as far as I remember. And I remember,
Is that the one in Georgetown, like the
yes,
oldest pub or
yes,
something?
yes.
There's a brass band jam down there?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I did not know about that.
Yeah. So and they're it's a super supportive space. I haven't been, but everybody I've talked to about it has been pretty positive. So and the hunk
Cool.
community here, of course, is huge and really positive. And but I wanted to host a jam for me and my band, to sort of again open another space north because the Sea
Yeah.
Monster is up north. So we really enjoy hosting stuff there, and kind of doing the same sort of work where I think a lot of people have instruments in the back of their closet and they're maybe not so into the honk band thing or not like that really aware of it, but are more aware of like the New Orleans style stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, and I also teach a lot. So nowadays I'm teaching a lot in public schools, private lessons and brass coaching. So I'll do a lot of brass band stuff in those schools. So I'm currently at Ballard, um, Ingram, and Robert Eaglestaff Middle School and Lincoln High School teaching
Hmm.
brass to those kids. So which is really fun.
And what do you play?
I play all the brass instruments.
All the brass
Yeah.
instruments. Okay.
So
Okay.
in my band, the Blowout Heavies, I play trumpet. Um, but in TMB, I used to play all the brass instruments, whatever they needed, and
Wow.
that's sort of my role. So this week
Got
I'm
it.
playing at the Village Theater in Issaquah, playing trumpet. But on Fridays you can catch me at the Sea Monster again, playing with Funky to Death, Seattle's longest standing funk band, the band that built the bar.
Wow.
So yeah, that's sort of like my thing is try to create a space. And I sort of started playing at the Sea Monster a lot more regularly, so that's sort of where home base is for me nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. Can you tell me a little bit about how you first started to play New Orleans brass? You know, because you did make that distinction between honk and New Orleans, like kind of maybe not second line, but like yeah, more
But yeah,
brass band style. So yeah, where'd you learn?
I think I mostly just listened to recordings. In high school, I loved to just I got totally transfixed by a band called Hypnotic Brass Ensemble,
Uh-huh.
which they're sort of a more East Coast, and they're definitely not a New Orleans style brass band. They're these nine brothers and an unrelated friend who came together and just played their own unique hip hop influenced brass band music. And excuse me, I was really inspired by that music, and then HBCU's marching bands. So like big historically black colleges like
Yeah.
FAMU or JSU, they have these like 500 person marching bands, and it's just the biggest wall of sound you've ever heard. And so I just fell in love with it, and other music wasn't as interesting to me as that. So
Yeah.
I just sort of I just learned it. And when did I start playing New Orleans style music? Probably in college. In college, there was a couple of friends who were doing that kind of music, and I hopped in and learned what I could. I went to school in Oregon, at University of Oregon, in
Okay.
Eugene, Oregon, and we did a lot of stuff there. I started another brass band up there, Green Hand Brass, and then eventually had to move up here. So yeah, I just been drawn to it my whole life, I guess, ever since early adolescence,
Wow.
and it's just been in my head, and I can't stop playing it. So I try to just recruit as many of my friends as possible in the endeavor,
Yeah,
and
for
it
sure.
happens.
Cool. What would you say the difference is between honk and New Orleans brass?
Well, I think going to Honk NYC and Honk Boston last year, I learned a lot about the specific community activism focus of those bands.
Of the honk bands.
hmm
Uh-huh.
It really inspiring stuff. School of Honk, and I forget there's a whole slew of brass bands out of Honk Boston. The first Honk Fest that they're really sort of activist focused.
Wow.
I think the culture is slightly different up here, but not as much. See, Honk West is the second Honk ever formed out of that, but and I think there's not much separation from there, but I know that there's a lot of honk activists who have put a lot on the line out there in Boston fighting for civil rights out there. So, uh, New Orleans brass bands is just a different style and a different focus. I think the party,
Yeah.
and then the second line specifically, funeral bands are a lot. It's just a different entity entirely,
Yeah,
a lot more
yeah.
improvised also.
Oh yeah,
hmm
like you would say honk bands play more uh like more straight to the chart as opposed
Exactly,
to
exactly.
longer improvisations and stuff like that.
New Orleans music has a lot more improvisation built into it, and a lot more sort of give and take and flow. Whereas honk bands have sort of these songs that work. There's improvisation for sure, and there's different roles. The honk bands here in Seattle are very interesting because they each have their own identity. Um, if you ask any sort of chaotic noise people, they have like even roles within the band, like bruisers, and I wish I remembered them. But you should ask them because they have like specific roles within the band of like people who like help like the mosh pit and the people who direct the ensemble, and
Really?
then people who improvise and people who don't. And there's
Wow.
these direct roles that don't really exist in a New Orleans band because they're just different functions.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had no
You
idea.
should get some chaotic noise people in here. They're really interesting and really cool people.
Hmm.
Um,
Would you say honk is more like enter like more entertainment focused?
hmm,
Like, because I think of like March 4th, for example,
yes,
like they have a whole show.
right.
And like, I feel like that's so much a part of the culture as opposed to New Orleans brass band has such a different history,
Yes.
So I'm just curious to your perspective on that.
I would be also curious to say if the March 4th people thought they were a honk band.
Oh, are they not
I
how would you even,
I
they're like a
don't.
brass
They are
band.
a brass band. I would say they're definitely. It's interesting because they definitely came up like in that same era of honk too. I would have to ask them. As an archivist, this is very exciting. Now I'm sort of like, man, lot more research to do. Hmm. Is March 4th a honk band?
Because it's like on, they tour.
Yes.
Honk bands don't necessarily tour in the same degree, right?
Yes. I don't mean this as a pejorative, but I do mean this with like I think honk bands are sort of implicitly like not professional musicians.
Yeah, like sort of participatory focused, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I will say that you're definitely right that March 4th is a entertainment focused band, and it is very different than New Orleans. But if you go to New Orleans, I think it's those bands it is entertainment focused, and it's also culture, where I feel like March 4th is like a sort of an exciting spectacle, but I wouldn't say
That's
like
interesting.
everyone grew up like thinking about playing in a band like that. Whereas in New Orleans, like you grow up, if you're from Treme, if you're from a specific ward, excuse me, you really exist in that culture.
Mm.
It's a lot different. We have a guy in the band, Roy. Roy is from New Orleans and moved here to get away from the hurricanes, but he grew up with Trombone Shorty, and he has
Hmm.
relatives in like the sort of New Orleans royalty, and it's really it's different down there. And when you go to visit the breadth of talent and grit that goes into that music is why it's one of my favorites. So I think they're very different, but it's especially for those brass bands, that's not like a it's not like a fun gig that they get to do, and it's like life,
Yeah.
and it is very specifically like that's a part of like what they grow up doing, and like there's these statues of Louis Armstrong like staring down at you,
Yeah.
so you got to play, and you really got to play. Here in Seattle, the honk bands are awesome, and I love them, but it's a different focus. It is the entertainment of it, I guess. You're right, the
Yeah.
spectacle.
Yeah.
I guess the word I'm getting stuck on is entertainment, because it's spectacle, I think, versus like spirit. I don't know if that's right, but that's
Ooh.
what I would say.
Yeah, I like that. I There's lots to think about there too because with honk bands there's like costumes,
Yeah,
and like themes, and I think there's a bit more weight when it comes to New Orleans brass bands, like, and the songs mean something different perhaps because there's like a longer legacy behind why they chose those songs.
totally.
Like when the Saints come in, like that can turn into a funeral march and you got to know why that's happened, right?
Yeah,
So like I wonder how like playing New Orleans music, like how much do you think about like the cultural context of that, like
every day.
yeah.
Every day. Well, yeah, especially in this era of cultural appropriation, it's super important to understand why you're doing what you're doing. There's some clip that goes viral every day of like some weird white person singing "Wade in the Water." It's like if
Yeah.
you don't really understand the
Yeah.
context of what's going on,
Mhm.
you know. I think a lot of the honk bands around here will play "I'll Fly Away," and that's not a happy. I mean, it's a happy song, but it's sort of this whole history of that song because it's a gospel song about
Yep.
like dying. It's
Yep.
about dying, and then you'll bookend that right with some other like maybe like a Shakira song or like a Justin Timberlake song. It's like in the context of entertaining, it's important to understand. Like it's important to do that, I guess, for flow, but it's also important to understand why you do that.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if somebody from New Orleans would have a different take. Like if Roy was here with us today, he'll
Yeah.
be on stage. He might have a different take, but I know that the we have to think about playing New Orleans music very specifically, and I would say our band is New Orleans influenced. Definitely
Mhm.
not. That's not like a thread because I'm not from there. I'm just a big fan. Um, but we have people like Roy's from there, and a lot of the other people who were like grew up in the music in different ways.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but
One thing, I mean, this might be a little nerdy and maybe a little off for the interview's sake, but one thing I was very close to studying New Orleans drumming in
oh, nice.
my graduate school
Where'd you go?
program at UW.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so I was very close to doing some ethnographic work out there, learning more about the drums. And one thing that I really uh, love the music is the swing.
Yeah,
It's so loose and it
completely different than jazz.
yeah, yeah, and I was really vibing with it, especially like it's like I'm a drummer, so like it's like where the drum set was innovated, so
Yeah,
you can hear in the New Orleans, like you can put all the parts together and they all I don't know, it's so beautiful. So like there's a part of my heart that really enjoys New Orleans brass band music.
I'm glad to hear that, man.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I would say that again, like part of our influence is like we only use one drummer, which like part of the New Orleans culture. That's not
Right,
part of that culture, and
right.
that's again my sort of thing of like I number one don't want to pay two people, but number two, it's like there's a different feel that I want to go for. That's not necessarily that thing, but again, influenced by that thing. I think I want the spirit of the music in what we play, and I want sort of a little bit tighter of a sound. And but you're right, there is nothing like that swing feel.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of if you go online, there's Rebirth at Tulane University, and it's Derek Tabb, one of the original, not the original, one of the preeminent snare drummers from Rebirth, and Uncle Phil, who recently had a couple strokes, unfortunately, but talking about Uncle Phil and then his cousin or brother, the whole family's there, and they're just talking about the rhythm, and you can
Mhm.
watch Derek Tabb talk about 13 stroke rolls, and you can watch the band kind of come together and talk about really critical stuff. So if you're
Mm.
interested in that, you check it out.
I
So
should.
Rebirth at Tulane,
Cool. And
yeah,
that's like on
yeah,
YouTube.
on YouTube,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
I love that. Okay, let's I want to talk a little bit more about like maybe some of your work in Seattle and like the stuff that you do for around like doing all those jams. And I wonder what you think of folk life in terms of, maybe this is, I'm a little scattered right now, but maybe let's
Me
switch to
too.
folk life. We're here at the festival and like you've been here since 2019, right?
Hmm.
What's your take on the festival? Like how do you like being a part of it and what do you see?
Dude, it's sick. I think it's a very specific Seattle thing. I think like similarly like why Honk Fest does really well here and why it came here second and why this thing is here is that, like people in Seattle just love music.
Yeah,
And I think there's this sort of I think especially culturally like about folk music that's so interesting, organic and unique and people in Seattle love that.
yeah,
My personal opinion, I think it's so critical to the ecosystem of everything, and you see it in all the pamphlets that they throw around all the work that they do. But folk life is like not just like a festival that you play for 3 days, but it's like a thing that goes through the city through the whole year.
yeah,
I think that's really important. The impact of something for 3 days is just like whatever, but what is the culture impact? What are the interviews that you're doing now that will be really exciting 5 years from now?
yeah,
That's I think that's the important work. I think performances are really exciting. When I played here a couple years ago, this is the main stage where they like the part of the Honk Fest.
yeah.
It's like yeah, it's like a couple thousand people. It feels like, and it's just like there's this moment. I think especially now with there's so much striation with the way we view media, the idea of like folk music, which is like we are here present, the people in your town, your
Right.
neighbor coming together and listening to your neighbor hang out. We need that more than ever.
Right, that's such a great point. People think of folk as like a genre, that has a guitar and a fiddle, and, that thing. But yeah, to think of it more as folk as your neighbor, people in your community
Yeah.
doing music. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean more than anything, and that's why I do what I do with everything else. Like I think I love to teach because um I don't love waking up early in the morning, but I love waking up early to see sort of kids be excited about music,
Yeah.
and then in Seattle we have I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a really competitive jazz scene here.
Mm.
And so, like, I think there's maybe 3 or 5 schools from Seattle will go to this essentially Ellington
Oh yeah, the
contest,
Garfield High School
and
does
Roosevelt,
incredibly well.
yeah,
Yeah.
and lots of other high schools here also, not like Terrace, and I forget who made it in this year, but a lot of people made it in, and it's a very competitive music scene out here, and but that's a very important thing. Um, but I think for the human soul, more important is why did we wake up this early to be together? Why even have music in schools? And it's this moment of like, I'm your neighbor. I'm totally different from you. I came from a different place. Seattle being a very diverse place too. It's so nice to like sit next to somebody who you don't know and then develop a relationship with them for 4 years and doing something that lifts your spirit. There's a
Mm.
lot of science to why music feels so good. Um, and it's so critical that kids experience that. So for me, that's a really big part of what I do, and I think it's so exciting that folk life exists as sort of another one of those vehicles of like I think a lot of music festivals try to say that too, right? Like people
Yeah.
like yeah, like Coachella is like awesome. I feel like a spiritual awakening, which is I mean for a lot of people it's very true.
Yeah.
But another thing is like I'm not sure how many people like are really feeling spiritually connected to the next person, the person next to them.
Right.
And I think a thing like this where you see some weird, strange thing you've never seen before, have no real connection to, but then you hear a story and then build the connection to that. I think that's the most important thing.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Well, maybe I always have like a sign off question for these interviews. Well, actually, before that, I like to ask if anybody is interested in the work you're doing or wants to support you, what are some ways that they can do that?
You can go um, follow the Blowout Heavies on Facebook and Instagram, and we're at the Sea Monster every first Wednesday, 7 to 9. So come hang out there
Cool.
first. And then my website, chuckdemonin.com. You can follow me and whatever I'm doing. Um, and I think the biggest thing for support is always just supporting your local schools.
Yeah.
Whenever people vote to take money away from public schools, it's a direct loss. Do not have the statistics for you right now, but every cent that you take away from early development is dollars, thousands of dollars on the back end. Everyone needs to be supporting schools and kids, especially in this crazy times, because that's the future, and that's what is going to make everything else change. So the more that we take away even something that seems as innocuous as music, the more life is drained out of kids. We can't
Yeah.
afford that, you know. So if anybody does anything, it's make sure that you give money to schools, volunteer at your schools. That really annoying field trip you don't want to go on with your kids, go on that field trip, and it'll really help everyone.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's really important. I've had a lot of other people come in and talk about how important youth education is, especially like in the times we're living. Like it's really important to support them, support their education in music,
Yeah,
cultural diversity, and everything like that.
yeah.
Cool. Well, the sign off question it might be a little deep, but it's just, do you have a person or a song or a phrase that's changed how you view the world? And it could be
Oh,
like, something that stuck around for like decades for you, or just something that's a song or, a phrase that's just been in your head recently.
I think the greatest thing, and people who are into folk life would be into this, I think, is the Bobby McFerrin concert in France. Have you seen this concert?
Potentially. I love Bobby
He's in
McFerrin.
Montreal, and is that? Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I forget the title of it, but I think it's at some point in the 80s. You can find it all on YouTube. He's in a red shirt, and at the same time I was like finding all this stuff on YouTube, and growing up in high school of HBCUs and brass bands. I found this whole concert of Bobby McFerrin, where it's just him and a microphone, and then he brings in some friends, and it really
Yes, I've seen that.
it there's so many awesome examples. My particular favorite is when he's playing with Richard Bona, this is
Mm.
bass player, and you can just see there's so much love, and it's not the most perfect music, but it's the best music. It's just interaction, love, and spontaneous joy. I think that's been the most influential thing in my life is that
Wow.
concert.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, check it out.
Cool.
I wish I had that for you, but you can check it out. Bobby McFerrin live in Montreal.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you so much, Chuck.
this was so fun.
Sweet.
Thanks so much.